You ready, Greg?
Let's go, Jay.
You're listening to The Success Paradigm with your hosts, Jay Atkins and Greg Gray.
Well, hello, everyone. It's been a few weeks since we've done the last podcast, and we're going to start this one off a little different today, and we're going to kind of explain the why we've been off the air for 5 weeks. And we decided to take a couple-week break at the end of the year, and then unfortunately, my household got hit with COVID January 1st. So Greg and I decided that the fiscal year 2021 will start March 1st, being that that's when COVID hit. And that's going to be our new year, because my new year did not start off exactly the way that I planned it December 31st with my wife that evening and planning what our year was going to look like. But what I want to talk about today real quick for everyone listening and everyone that's going to listen in the future is I just want to talk about my personal experience really quickly that I've had with the disease. And I will tell you, from the day that it came out and I met Greg Gray at a train station and asked him what he thought about COVID, and him and I just got off of an airplane, rode through a train in the airport, rode a train in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, and he was like, SARS, H1N1, it's not going to be a big deal. I've flown through many of these. I was like, okay. And then, it started getting politicized. People started saying it was fake. People were saying that it's not real. People are not getting that sick. And so I really didn't know what to believe, because not that many people close to me had gotten it yet. And now the dominoes are falling. And I know hundreds of people that have the disease, and hundreds of people having different side effects from the disease, different symptoms from the disease. And I will tell you, my symptoms were not that bad. I had some heart palpitations and some headaches and things like that, but it's my wife that I had to watch suffer for 10 days, 37 weeks pregnant. And if I start to talk about it too much, I'll get a little emotional. So I'm going to stay away from that right now, so I can get some distance in between me and that and what I had to see. But I just want to tell everyone out there it's real. And it might not affect you. You might not even know you have it. I wouldn't have known that I had it if it hadn't have been for someone in my family and we went and got tested that we were not even in that close proximity to. But my wife would have known, because she had really, really bad symptoms, to the point that where it hospitalized her for 3 days. So it's real. And that's the reason we weren't on here for 3 weeks. I don't like to make excuses, but I had to take care of a toddler for 3 weeks straight because my wife couldn't. So I also have lots and lots of respect for single mothers, because that is one of the hardest jobs. And there is a lot of speaking of successful people, successful single moms, stay-at-home moms out there that I just want to say, you guys rock, because 3 weeks with a toddler, my daughter is a princess, and she is precious, and she's one of the best behaved child I've ever seen in my entire life. And I know probably all parents say that, but I'm lucky. But I just can't imagine that being my full-time job. So to all of you that do that every day, even single fathers or stay-at-home fathers, it's a hard job, and I have much, much respect for you. So the last thing that I want to say before we introduce this awesome guest that we are coming back with a storm with, which I'm so excited to talk to today, is I talked to my doctor about the vaccine. And I know this is a topic and people are saying, I'm not going to get the vaccine. I'm going to get the vaccine. And, whatever your belief is, I just want to give you what I've learned, because I'm a guy that asks lots and lots and lots of questions of everyone. And I asked 10 doctors why I was sick. My wife was sick, and I got all conflicting news from all of them. But I talked to one doctor that I trust. He's 70 years old. I talked to his son that's 45 years old. And they said, yes, we got that vaccine. And I was like, yeah, but everyone's saying that there's side effects, or they're worried what it is, what it could be. And he said, there's always that risk with any vaccine. And what I will tell you is, if you have a reaction to this vaccine or you get sick from this vaccine, All I will say is, imagine if you got COVID, what it would do to you. And for me, I was like, didn't really think about it that way. He was like, if that vaccine affects you, if you actually get COVID, you might be one of the 600,000 or 700,000 or whatever the number ends up being that can't handle this. And I will tell you this, the last 21 days of my life have been the very worst days of my life thus far. Seeing my wife sick, seeing my daughter sick. And the biggest thing about COVID that I will tell you that will mess you up the most is the mental aspect of not knowing what's coming, not knowing what you're going to wake up the next day feeling like, not knowing if it's going to be over in 21 days, not knowing if it's going to be 30 days. So I would tell you, wear a mask, even if you think it's BS, even if you think that people are trying to control us, just do it to protect other people. Because if it wasn't for a positive test coming in my family, I would have been out and about, maybe infecting someone or infecting other people if I was out to dinner or whatever, because I didn't have the symptoms like, oh my God, I think I have COVID. So just wear a mask and don't think that you're trying to be controlled. Just protect the people that have, immune systems or that might get sick from it. So that's my soapbox. I probably went a little longer than I wanted to, but I just want to tell you guys, really consider getting the mask. And one last thing I thought was hilarious is some girl on a Reels I just ran into, and someone asked, she said, everyone was asking me, am I going to get the vaccine? Am I going to get the vaccine? And I said, I ate 2 pieces of American cheese for the last 20 years, and I'm still healthy and kicking. There ain't nothing that vaccine is going to do that American cheese didn't do. And I was thinking, there's a lot of things that people put in their bodies that are not that great. I just don't think a vaccine is going to harm you that bad. And listen, if you get COVID and that shot harms you, COVID will kill you. So it's better to have something to fight against COVID. And that's just my stand. But again, I know there's vaccine people out there, and I'm not trying to offend any of you on this podcast. I'm just giving you my opinion because I have an open mic. So with that being said, I'm really excited about our next guest today, David Schwartz. Greg is going to do, as he always does, the official bio. I'm going to give you a little unofficial bio because I know one of his really, really good friends. And then we're going to get into this. So, Greg?
Excellent. Thank you. So I might step out for a minute because I have a grilled cheese on the stove downstairs that somehow is feeling less appealing to me now. So thank you so much, Jack. So we are honored to have Mr. David Schwartz hanging out with us today. It seems like every week we do this, like, can we get somebody that tops the last weekend? And David, you're setting the bar high, and we're super excited. So your bio: David Schwartz, partner at Gertsman, Schwartz LLP and Gotham Government Relations, has spent his entire career practicing law as a litigator and for the past decade as a lobbyist and advocate on behalf of businesses, trade associations, not-for-profits, and individuals. Mr. Schwartz has represented clients at all ends of the spectrum, including some of the largest companies in America to some of the least fortunate in our society on criminal matters. It is this training as a trial attorney, trying dozens of felony cases and handling thousands, that makes him extremely effective in navigating the political process for his clients. He lobbies for a wide variety of large corporations, not-for-profits, trade associations, and individuals. He is also a prolific political fundraiser, having raised hundreds of thousands of dollars nationally. Mr. Schwartz has been a regular guest legal expert and political commentator for the Fox News Channel, NBC Today, MSNBC Headline News, CNN, WABC News, Fox and Friends, WPIX, Court. Is there anybody left here? Court, and for ESPN. The only thing missing is Sesame Street, and I bet you will probably be on that one before it's all over too. Very impressive. Mr. Schwartz was appointed by the New York State Senate as a commissioner on the Commission on Judicial Nominations, which nominates justices to the New York State Court of Appeals, and also served as a trustee of the Brooklyn Bar Association. Mr. Schwartz was also appointed by the governor to serve on the board of the Gov't Center in New York City. He presently concentrates his practice on lobbying and government relations. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the official bio for Mr. David Schwartz.
Thank you. Thank you, Greg.
You got it. Very impressive.
And the unofficial is really quick because, I don't know David that well yet, but that's the thing I love about this podcast is we're going to get to know each other very intimately and know more about you and you're probably going to talk about things you haven't talked about in a long time. But what I do know is my good friend Brian Posey, that David and I talked about at the very beginning of this, is someone that I respect immensely. And as we're building this podcast, we are asking for other people to talk to that they think were successful and referrals, because we want to talk to as many people as possible to pull out great things. And when we talked to Brian and we asked him that question, you were the first person that popped in his head. So the way we ask the question, David, is we want to talk to one of the most successful people that you've ever met, that you respect. Who's the first person that popped in your head? And you were the first person that popped in his head. So, and Brian is someone that I respect so much. And he is just, you said it best when we got on here. I said, man, Brian, I was trying to finish saying, you were like, he is just a good man. And I know one thing about Brian is Brian does not associate with people that are not good people. He will not have them in his circle. It's just his family's too important to him. His career is too important to him. So, I haven't met you officially yet, David, but what I will tell you, I know already, is that you are a really good man. And I'm looking really forward to getting to know you and be in the same circle as you and my friend Brian Posey. So David, what we do on here is like I told you earlier, we want to know more the story than the glory, right? Greg just read all your glory of all the accomplishments. And obviously you're very well respected in your industry. And I love law, and I love, it's intriguing. Like, I love 48 hours and people trying cases and, all the things that you do. I think that's what I was in my former life. But, before that, and before doing all the lobbying, like, we like to go back and kind of figure out where this successful David Schwartz was built, how he was built, what failures happened, and just kind of talk about that journey. And you can begin in high school, elementary, growing up with your parents, college, wherever you're comfortable, but just kind of tell us that story, how you've gotten to this point in your life.
Well, and thank you for that, Jay. And before I do that, God bless you and your family and everything that you went through. I had COVID. My daughters had COVID. And unfortunately, I lost my dad this year to COVID. He's a COVID death. Even though it was at the end of the day, it was other things that he had a lot of other things wrong with him. But he did go to the hospital for COVID. And so it definitely hits home with me. And my father was such an instrumental part of my life. And, it's those people, it's almost like magical moments. When I think of Brian Posey, I think of these magical moments that happen. Because I met Brian the very first day he was in New York. During his stint in New York, working for Allstate, I met Brian his very first day in New York. We met at a fundraiser for Senator Mike Balboni. And you talk about, we found each other right away. And he didn't know anyone in New York. Meanwhile, by the time he left New York, he basically owned New York, right? But he didn't know one person in New York. And I think I was the first person he met in New York, because he was bringing his car into New York, and he didn't even go to his house yet. He stopped at that fundraiser, and it was like a magical night because we hit it off from there. And then we had so many other great moments together. But life is really about these moments where you meet these amazing people. And I regret all the amazing people I haven't met, where I was in situations where I didn't give the person enough of a shot. But really going backwards to answer your question, and I guess there is no right answer to your question. What a question that is. But I'm just a kid from Brooklyn. I grew up in Brooklyn. My dad was really old school New York. I mean, when you think about Frank Sinatra and just old school New York, tough, small businessman. He had me working when I was 8 years old. All right, he had a convenience store distributor, which he had for 75 years. Actually, it was in my family for 75 years. My grandfather had started it, and it was a small business in Brooklyn in Sunset Park. And when he took me to work, the other kids were watching cartoons on TV on Saturday mornings. I was working in the warehouse. And that taught me a lot. And then my grandfather was there, and it was a lot of pride. The neighborhood was very tough neighborhood, a lot of drugs, and just seeing, the renaissance of what New York went through, because now it's a pretty good neighborhood where that warehouse is located. So I'm a kid from Brooklyn. I went to Lincoln High School, very interesting high school, very diverse high school. And it taught me a lot about being multicultural and being in classes with kids. You name it, we had it in Lincoln High School in Brooklyn, and it was great. Part of the learning experience for high school is being able to relate to everyone, being a connector with everyone around you, and it was a great experience. I think, I live on Long Island now in Roslyn. My kids, it's a great neighborhood. My kids went to the public school at Wheatley High School, but it was much more sheltered. It's very sheltered, and that's the present day society. It's a very sheltered society. Great school district my kids are in, one of the best on Long Island, one of the best in the country. And we had great programs, great teachers, not a tremendous amount of diversity. And I think they missed out, because part of the learning experience of being in high school, being in grade school, is the diversity, is meeting people from all walks of life. And that really helped me out throughout my whole life, because it's shocking how many people are sheltered in this world. So, being a Brooklyn boy, I'm very proud of that. And I'm still in Brooklyn all the time on business. And so those were the building blocks. My father and my mom, who thank God is still with us. She gave me, all the outward love and support my father didn't give me, because again, he was old school, tough guy. I knew he loved me, but he never told me he loved me. But my mother told me she loved me all the time. So, the combination was really a good combination of my mother being that great mom to me, and my father really teaching me, how to be tough and how to get through problems. And I watched him get through a lot of problems, and he had his own way about him. And I miss him a lot. It's unbelievable to lose a parent, especially in this day and age. So I know I'm just, sort of, I almost forgot about what the question was.
No,
okay.
That's your journey. Yeah. You raised the kids. You're great. You're on point. You raised how your parents raised you, your mom loved you, and then just kind of, your success and failure journey after getting into college. Obviously, you're a high, I guess this is not saying anything wrong, but high-powered attorney and very successful attorney and very sought-after attorney and, very knowledgeable attorney. All of those things.
I'd like to think that, but as we spoke about on the show when we had the conversation before the show, success is very relative. It's a very relative term. I mean, who is successful? Who's not successful? What makes a person a success? Being, what some people consider a high-powered attorney and having big clients and having a good amount of success, is certainly. It's a nice thing to have, but that's not why I think I'm successful. If I am successful at all, that's really not the reason why. And in fact, a lot of my practice has been criminal defense work. I am a former prosecutor in Brooklyn, and then I've tried a ton of criminal defense cases. And when you hear those statistics that the DA's office has a 95% conviction rate, well, okay, they have it. Then what does that mean? It means the defense bar has a 5% acquittal rate, right? But then you've got these defense attorneys who are lying, basically, and they're saying, I have won every single case I've ever tried. And that's not true. It's not true. I've lost, in the criminal defense arena, I've definitely lost more cases than I've won. But I have won a lot of great cases. But I've lost cases, and then winning and losing, or success and failure, it's all relative. It's shades of gray. For example, if you have a murder case, I had a murder case, your defendant client's facing 25 to life. All right. And then the jury comes back, you try the case of your life, the jury comes back and they convict your client, but just on the gun, not on the murder, okay? And then the judge gives your client 2 to 6 years in jail for having the gun, right? Is that a win or is that a loss? Well, your client, it's a conviction. The DA is going to say it's a win because they got a conviction. But is it a real loss for me? Hell no, because my client was facing 25 to life. I just got them acquitted on the murder charge, and now, they got convicted for the gun. So my point of telling that story is that there are shades of winning and losing. It's not just about winning and losing. It's not just about success and failure. And I think that's the problem with our society today, is that it's just one, either in this camp or you're in this camp, when 99% of us are kind of like in the middle somewhere along a spectrum. So, so again, I know I'm getting off the point, but I've had a lot of failure in my life. And I think from my father, I get that inner strength to just keep going, no matter what. I've lost a lot of cases. I've stumbled along the journey. Going back to, I'm a Tulane graduate, and that's where I met my wife, and that was a great success. I met my wife there, but we had some ups and downs along the way, and we had broken up, but we ended up getting married 6 years later.
You've had ups and downs in a relationship?
Can't believe it, right? But
so what made you want to be an attorney? Like where did that journey start in college?
I always wanted to be an attorney, and I practice fun. I say to my client, I practice fun law. I don't practice boring law. All right. To me, boring law is corporate work and reading contracts and doing real estate closings. Nothing. I know I'll get some hate mail after this, but to me, that's boring law. Maybe to some other people, that's exciting law, right? My law is two things right now. It's litigation. Okay. We have a great litigation team. We try cases, all over the place, right? We try cases. We feel we're a boutique firm that does big firm work just on litigation. And then we have a lobby and government relations practice where we lobby for clients in DC, in Albany, in New York City. And people ask, well, how do those two go together? They go together perfectly because it's all about advocacy. It's advocacy for the client. That's what we are. So whether it's advocacy in the halls of the legislature or advocacy in the courtroom, it's all about advocacy. And that's where the two come together. And that's what makes us very unique. But to me, that's fun law. So how did I always wanted to be a lawyer, but I always wanted to practice fun law. So fun law to me was trying cases. That to me, that was the only law. There was no real estate law. There was no transactional law. That's not even law to me. Of course it's law, right? But trying cases, Perry Mason, that just at a very young age, that's what I wanted to do. So I took a job right out of law school with the Brooklyn DA's office. And it was a very low paying job at the time. I was making $30,000 a year. My other lawyers, if they took a big firm job, they were making $100,000 a year right out of law school. But this is a lesson right here. Don't always go after the highest paying job because they weren't practicing, in my opinion anyway, sitting in a cubicle and doing 20 hours of work a day. Research for the partner in the firm is not fun law. When you work for the Brooklyn DA's office and you get thrown into the fire day one. Now listen, this was in the mid 90s. Think about the mid 90s, 1993, the highest crime ever in New York City's history. We had 2,100 murders, in the mid 90s, and crime was rampant everywhere. You name it. The city was in really bad shape. All right. That's bad for New York City. But if you're a young prosecutor, it's great. It's like, it sounds horrible. But think about the experience I got. Mm-hmm. The other break I got in the DA's office was the economy was pretty good. So when the economy is good, people are moving fast. We had 600 attorneys in the Brooklyn DA's office.
Wow.
So you move, but you move fast down the line. So a year and a half in the job, I was trying felony cases in the red zone, which was the highest crime precincts in all of Brooklyn. It included East New York, Bed-Stuy, and back then, now those communities have really had a resurgence, had a renaissance, but back then it was really, really high crime. And so, you know, that was what law was to me, was trying cases. So I really did have my dream job right out of law school. That was my dream job. And a regret in life, probably a bad move in life, I was really at the top of my game. I had a child on the way, and I decided, you know what, I can't afford to work here anymore. And so it was the money which took me away from my dream job. And now looking back on it, you know, we could have worked it. You know what? It would have been fine. I should have stayed another couple of years. I should have tried more cases in the Brooklyn DA's office because I was moving up the ladder. So that's a regret of mine. Is it a failure? No, it's not a failure, because I ended up having other opportunities and various other law practices, but there was nothing like that first job at the Brooklyn DA's office. And then after that, you know, it was tough. I put out my own shingle. I took an office with a legendary attorney in New York, Jerry Karp, who was just a legendary attorney, and he taught me so much. But it really took a while for me to get my practice going. I was doing high volume criminal defense work, and it was tough. Criminal defense work is tough. You're running around, you're getting the calls at midnight. Back then we had arraignments that went on all night long, 24 hours. So I'd be at Manhattan arraignments at 2 a.m. sometimes. You get the calls. Back then we didn't have cell phones either, so I had a beeper back then. You remember the beeper? I guess, Jay, you don't remember the beeper.
Oh, no.
You remember the beeper?
I had a beeper, and I worked for a restaurant chain.
Uh-huh.
Told me I couldn't wear it on my hip because I looked like a drug dealer.
Yeah, right. Well, I looked like a drug dealer too, especially when I was running around.
Yes.
Especially when I was running around at 2 a.m. to
in the middle of the night, right?
So, you know, these are the things that really teach you a lot. But you meet so many incredible people along the way. You really do with jobs like this. So those were the kind of jobs that excited me, you know, and I really did have those jobs. I lived through those jobs, which was phenomenal experience.
Well, David, you know, something that you said, you said it a couple of times, and it's kind of striking because I don't know that it's ever landed on me exactly this way when we've been in our podcast, but an attorney's eye view of winning and losing, and that advocacy is the higher calling than the outcome, because, you know, you argue your best case and either a judge or a jury has the final say, but your advocacy is what you control in that moment. And so I say that because it's interesting, because I think I think a lot of people fantasize about being an attorney until we figured out that we had to do something after high school. There's a whole lot of rules I understand around that. But about winning, you know, I lost a case. That's what I always think when I think of attorney. They lost a case or they won a case. They lost a case or won a case. So it's kind of a striking paradigm, to use a word that we love around here, to think about more, because that is the journey. The outcome is, you know, guilty, innocent, you know, that kind of thing. But the journey is really where the passion is. And I guess that's why you think of it or describe it just hilariously, wonderfully as fun law, because it's all the stuff that you do in the lead up where you can really pour your heart and soul out into it. So it's an interesting worldview on success and failure and winning and losing. And I think it's something that people can really take. I think we do very often think about the finish line so much that we don't think about the race itself.
Yeah.
And there's, you know, that really could be a shame, because, you know, it's the race, you know, the finish line is that long. It happens and it's gone. But that you can lose that entire journey if you're just so focused on the finish line that the journey seems like that other thing that you do on the way.
Yeah, Greg, that's a great point, and it really finishes the point that I was trying to make, which is, yeah, I called it fun law, but that fun law is sleepless nights, 20-hour days, and the point really is, and it could be in any profession. It's not just in mine, but in any profession. In order to fulfill those 20-hour days where you literally have 3 or 4 hours of sleep, if you're on trial, I can't even sleep. It's just, you got to love it. You got to love the game so much to get you through that. Mm-hmm. Because when you're working on a project for 20 hours and you don't love what you're doing, you're in big trouble, because you're not going to be successful. You're not, whatever success is in that moment. And even the failures were successful, because you learn much more from failure than you do from success. But the best cases I've ever tried are the ones that I lost. No, there's no doubt about it. Look, the client, the clients really didn't have much of a shot in those cases. You're really against the odds in a lot of these cases. But some cases have to be tried. So my best cases have been the ones that I've lost. And then there are cases that I've won where, like, I'm scratching my head saying, wow, what is this jury crazy? So, but I won, Right. So yeah, like you just said, the ultimate verdict isn't, yeah, of course it's really what it's all about for the client. Mm-hmm. And it is a big part of it, but the journey is important. But to get through those sleepless nights, you got to love what you're doing. And I think that's a point, and that's why I took the $30,000 job with the Brooklyn DA's office, because I knew I would love it, and I did love it. And again, a regret is that I didn't stay there long. I always look back to this day, because had I stayed there a little longer, I would have, in the DA's office, I would have tried even bigger and better cases. Luckily, I got to do that on the defense side.
Awesome.
So David, I want to go back to a couple things that you said, because I'm in this stage right now with a 3-year-old that is getting ready to go to school. And I, like you, went to a public school, where I was a minority in this school, but I didn't know I was a minority back in 1987, 88, right? That was my surroundings every day. And I've always told my wife, like, I feel like because of that, I don't have racism in me. I don't discriminate. I have compassion for everybody. And I think it's because I had diversity, like you spoke about, around me. And so, now that I'm a parent and I have a little girl, I want to protect her. And I think the best way for me to protect her is to put her in a private school, right? And my wife definitely wants to put her in a private school and is afraid of public school. And, and this is kind of off the subject here, but you kind of struck a chord with me, because my stepson is 16 and he's back in public school, which I'm glad, because he's in a very diverse public school. And I'm wrapping this around success, because you kind of brought it around success. So I feel like maybe right now I'm protecting my daughter in a private school, but maybe I'm not setting her up for success. And that's the turmoil that I have now, even though she's 3, but I know my wife wants to put her in a private school when she's 5, and I just don't know what the right answer is. So you've said you made the mistake of putting your kids in private school and not giving them, or not, maybe not the mistake, but maybe you kind of wish they would have got an experience like you've gotten to set them up differently. So what is your real, because I want my wife to listen to this podcast so that we can.
Yes, you're being set up.
Right. So I would like for her to hear someone else's opinion, because I will tell you, I have an opinion, but my opinion to protect my daughter is outweighing my opinion to set my daughter up for success in her life and having that diversity and that culture around her.
Well, Jay, what a question. But well, first of all, my 2 daughters did go to public school. The public school was so phenomenal that it was like a private school,
okay.
As opposed to Lincoln High School in Brooklyn, which was wild. It was just a wild school. I mean, we had crime in the school. It was wild. But, it's kind of a lesson on marriage, really. So, so here's the situation. Your wife says private school. You say public school. Key to a good marriage, private school wins, right? So
that's easy. And then so the other thing I want to do
that's what that's actually what when my wife and I got married, that's what my rabbi told. I forgot the example. He goes, and David, when Heather wants to go to Aruba and you want to go to Florida, Aruba wins. Just remember that.
Yeah. So one.
No, let me. But I didn't even answer your question.
Okay.
So.
Oh, I thought you did.
No. I answered it very superficially. Superficially, I answered it. No. I look. You got to sit down and make the best decision. Look, I think ultimately, you want your kids to, go to a great school, and then of course off to the best college that they can go to. And that was our philosophy. I supported where they went to school, the Wheatley High School in the Roslyn area. It's a great school. So I don't regret sending them. They have terrific friends. They did get some diversity in their life, not tremendous, but they got some diversity, and they did greater program, more broader programs too beyond the high school. So there's other ways to expose your children to other cultures and people from all walks of life. So I think that goes beyond the school system as well. But you definitely want them to get the best education possible. There were things about Lincoln High School which were hard. I mean, I can't even get into the stories, but it was just
statute of limitations.
Yeah. It was just the old Wild West. It really was there. But all right, I interrupted your next question.
No, it's okay. So. And the next one thing I want to make a statement that I did not want people to miss is that sometimes low-paying job equals a lot better experience, and that experience will eventually get you a higher-paying job. But sacrificing pay because you could get a higher paying job, but have a horrible experience and not learn that much because somebody's not paying attention to you, has high expectations because they're giving you $100,000 salary, and they expect you to do all these things that you're not capable of yet. So I think that was really key what you said. And I just wanted people to get that. And then my next question was based on what you said. And you started off our podcast talking about the definition of success and what is success really? And what I would like to know specifically is, the thing I love about the success paradigm is we've had all levels of success on here. I mean, we had a person on that was getting a call from the White House in the middle of our podcast, right? I mean, connections like that. And then, we've had people that are reverends and doctors and, successful business people. So, but everyone's definition is different. And I think that definition is different sometimes on a day-to-day basis, or even a year-to-year basis, a month-to-month basis. But what I like our listeners to hear is, because different guests are going to inspire different people differently, right? Like somebody might be an aspiring attorney right now and be like, you know what, man, I got to stick with this and I can be like David, right? So today, January 27th, 2021, what is success and what's your definition of success today? Like, what are you working on? And you say, you know what, if I can accomplish this, or if I can have these things around it's family, it's work, it's all these other things, it's lobbying, it's, being an advocate for people. But what does success mean to you today?
It's a great question. And I can answer it with one word: freedom. Freedom. For me, based on certain circumstances in my life right now, stemming from my father, my brother and I had to, along with everything I'm doing here, my brother and I had to jump into that business. He was still running it to the day he died. I mean, so we've actually, and he has people there that have been working for 40 years. We had to keep it alive. So I've got my brother. So I've been actually running out there, aside from everything else that I'm doing right now. He used to get in at like 6 a.m. So I get in there at 6 a.m. sometimes, get things done there, and then come back to my office here in Garden City to start the rest of my day. So right now, my life has been a little upside down with this whole situation, and we're working on working on a solution for that business, but it's not easy, and it doesn't happen quick. So I want to see in his legacy, I want to see it continue, but right now it can't continue unless I'm involved. So for me, it all stems from freedom, being able to, especially once we get out of the COVID-19 era, which I hope is much sooner than later. I want to have the freedom to be able to do what I want in my life, spend more time with my family, even though my daughters are older now, and I always carved out time for my family, always. But being able to pick up and go whenever I want. So is it winning more cases? No. Is it something in the lobbying world? No. Is it other business opportunities? No, because those are here and those are coming here, and I'm always going to be involved in something. But really, the ability to be free for me is the definition of success. Right now, as we sit here today on this date, I'm not free. I'm not free. I'm stuck. Okay, and so I'm stuck right now, and I need to find a way, and I will, to become free again. So you're always in these situations where success. If you asked me 3 years ago, what's the meaning of success for you? Would I have said freedom? No. But you hit a chord with me right now when you asked me that question, which I didn't know you were going to ask me. And it's so funny because my New Year's resolution, I looked at my wife on New Year's and I said, my New Year's resolution this year is freedom. I'm going to become free this year. So that for me is success. Success could be such a innocuous thing, something that you can't even see sometimes. Yeah. Is success. Sometimes success for me is being able to just sit on a park bench on a beautiful day and having 40 minutes just to sit there and unwind. That's successful. And breathe, be able to breathe and meditate and have all those things. And you know what? When I was that young criminal defense attorney that I told you at 3 a.m. running around, I mean, these concepts, didn't even exist. Breathing, I mean, but
meditation.
That's what makes me happy now. And so things have changed, but I feel I still have, just as much tenacity and passion as I did back then. But it's important to fill it in with all the other things in life. By the way, Jay, you look very young for your age. I can't believe it. Like that you were in high school in the you said you were in high school in the 80s, right? Did I catch that right?
Yeah, well, it's funny that you say that because I was actually going to point that out to Greg that you said that I was not old enough to have a beeper. I just wondered if he caught that or not. So it's very yeah. I had a pager in 1994.
My apologies.
No.
We're like the same age.
Yeah, no apologies.
I feel like you look 20 years
no.
younger than me.
No, keep going. There's no apology you need to pay to me for that, especially in front of Greg Gray. I mean, that was, it was almost like I paid you or set that up, and I didn't, Greg. I promise, I did not.
I think he texted me. Did you hear that? Is what this came across.
Yeah, but Greg's got the whole style going. He's got the sharp bow tie, and he's a dapper guy. But you're pretty dapper too, Jay.
I'm trying to keep up. This guy sets a high bar. So I think the fact that question caught you off guard, David, but kind of hit you straight into the soul, is important to a lot of people right now. Situationally, freedom is a really big deal, and I guess it can be as ether-like as success. But what I loved about it was two things. One, it was freedom, but it was laced with spontaneity. Like so if I decide not just sit on the bench for 40 minutes, but if I decide right now to go sit on the bench for 40 minutes, I can do it without feeling as though I'm robbing some other part of my life or feeling guilty about it. But even bigger than that, you said something that, I'm a little older than both of you. I was telling somebody earlier today, it's interesting when life kind of happens in like 20-year cycles. Once you have seen like a 20-year cycle 2 times, you can kind of start seeing stuff coming where you go, oh, okay, I see this one. When you're 25, you don't really know that. But when you see that thing kind of turn around, you can kind of get your arms around it. And one of the things that I think happens as part of that cycle for a lot of us, and you said it, is like, I just feel stuck. And stuck is the place where a lot of people get and stay. But right after you said, so yeah, but I'm going to work my way out of it. How are you going to work your way out of stuck? Because a lot of people, they hit stuck really early in their lives, and God bless them. Some of them leave this earth stuck. So
most people leave stuck.
Yeah. So how, what does David Schwartz, working his way out of stuck look like in terms of the mindset associated with it, even as much as the tactic?
Yeah, well, as far as the mindset goes, you're right. A lot of people, you meet so many people that are stuck. The mindset is you have to see the world through your own eyes, and you can't see the world through someone else's eyes. You can't see the world. There's so much negativity. There's so much negativity, and I think that's where people get stuck. Is in the negativity. They get grounded, especially in the work environment. The boss that nobody likes, and all these situations. They just get themselves stuck in it, and they end up seeing the world through someone else's eyes. And I have a few examples of that I could think of. So I think the mindset is, here's the negativity. Here's this little circle. You got to get yourself out of that circle in order to move forward. Okay, you got to get yourself out of that little. It's like a whirlwind almost, right? And you got to get yourself out of that circle. You got to move out of that circle, and then you got to move forward. So that's exactly where I feel myself becoming stagnant, and I'm not stagnant right now. I'm actually, during this period of time where so many people unfortunately haven't been working, and I've never been busier. Like I explained to you, I'm in the warehouse sometimes at 6 a.m. I'm back in this is my office. Everyone's, I have my whole staff outside right now. I told them to stay out, but normally people would be barging through that door over there. Emily put a big note on the door, don't come in. But so I don't feel I'm stagnant right now. But certainly, as it comes to freedom, I can't get on a plane and go anywhere where, other people can. Maybe you guys could, not right now because of COVID-19.
Right. Sure.
But in general, even if there was no COVID-19, I couldn't get on a plane and just go away for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. People can do that. When I could get to that point where I can go on that plane and just say, you know what, I'm getting out of here for 2 weeks. I'm going here for 2 weeks. Take my wife, or maybe she could only come for a week, whatever it is, that's when I'll be successful.
David, I've got to stop you for 1 second though, because I think I want to help you.
Okay.
And I want to help our listeners because I listen very intently to what you're saying. You're stuck, but there's a difference. You chose to be stuck because of your father's legacy. And that's what's important to you right now, is that lives on. So yeah, you're stuck with this freedom thing, but it's a choice until you can figure out a way to get this legacy to go on, because that's what's important to you to give to your father and his legacy to move on. So there's 2 different stucks. There's a choice to be stuck because of the circumstances right now, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to let my father's business live on, his legacy live on, for his employees, for family, for whatever. And then there's people that are actually stuck, that don't know what to do and are not doing anything about it. And what you said at the beginning of this was, I'm stuck. My New Year's resolution was freedom, and I'm going to find a way out. Most people say, I don't know how to find a way out. So I want to kind of help you there, because I think what you're saying, even though you're stuck because you chose to be stuck, because your priority right now is your dad's business.
Right. So, well, my priority is really my business, but my priority is to get that business to move on. Right. And so I'm stuck in it, and I'm stuck here too. But Jay, you're 100% right. Sometimes I combine concepts. So I started answering Greg's question with the first kind of stuck, and that's when I talked about seeing the world through your own eyes and trying to get out of that circle.
Love that.
And I think part of being stuck, and now we're talking about the first stuck, because you're 100% right, is the negativity. And being stuck and seeing the world through someone else's eyes. For example, I tried a case. I had a doctor. His name was it was the case of Antonio Casanova. He was accused of burning down his building, and it was an arson murder case. And in that burning down, caused the death of another person. And it was a case. I won that case. It was a miracle, but I won that case. I got him a full acquittal. But I was not only up against one prosecutor, I had two prosecutors. I was the only defense attorney. I didn't have a staff or anything like that I could bring in. There wasn't enough money to do that on the case, which is unfortunate in criminal law, because if the person can only pay for a certain amount, that's what they got. He got me. And luckily in that case, it was good enough. But not only did I have the two prosecutors that tried to destroy me at all times, but the judge was against me. And that's where people don't understand that it's important to have fair and impartial judges. You know, when you elect a judge, people don't understand. They just circle a name. They don't even know who they're circling. You know how important that judge could make or break someone's life. And that judge was against me. And that judge tried to intimidate me. And that judge, she brought me up to the bench. She looked at me, she goes, Mr. Schwartz, you are going to lose. Nobody believes you. Nobody believes your client. And you're going to lose this case. Nobody believes your line of BS. She's telling me this at the bench.
Oh my gosh.
It was unbelievable.
Wow.
I looked at the judge, my instincts kicked in, my ego kicked in and everything else. I said, Judge, this jury loves me. I have them exactly where I want them. And I really did feel that way. And she looked at me like, you know, but she was trying, but my point of the story is she was trying to undermine me. She was trying to take the legs out from under me. And so many people try to do that in life. And I think that's what leads to people getting stuck, are all the people out there that say you can't do it. You can't achieve. You can't get past that barrier, you know? And it's those that just don't care, I don't care what that judge says. All right, she's doing her job, I'm doing my job, and to be honest, she wasn't doing her job by not being a fair, impartial justice. And so the key to getting out of that stuck that we talked about, the first kind of stuck, is to not pay attention to the negativity, to the non-believers. Stick with the people that have inspired you, that you could grab onto. And also the key to getting out of it is another concept, which is taking a leap of faith. You got to, sometimes in life, you got to take a leap of faith. You got to just say, the heck with it. I know this is a safe job. I know it's a good salary. But you know what? I have another path, and I have another idea, and I have confidence in myself, and I will be miserable if I stay in this job that has this ceiling here, or just makes me miserable. I will be miserable. My family will be miserable. I won't be a good dad. I won't be a good husband. You know, you have to take that all into account. If you're not a good dad and you're not a good husband, you know, you're not a good family man, you're not a good son, you're not a good brother, you know, then what good is it?
What's the point?
What's the point? Is that really success, by trying to hang on to something because it's safe? If you have confidence in yourself and you believe in your skill set, you don't need that job. And that's my message to people that are in that first kind of stuck.
So, you know, hashtag stuck is probably going to be one of the outcomes of this conversation. And this, by the way, the wonderful thing about these podcasts, David, is that we never know where they're going to go, ever know where they're going to go. And this has gone in a place that I think is really helpful for a lot of people. It's helpful for me personally, because the two stucks that we're talking about very often can happen at the same time, or you can be in one and it turns into the other in the same space. And I think what's really important is to know that I was sharing this with a friend, because sometimes this happens in the middle of chaos, and there's a lot of chaos surrounding us right now, that you can be in the midst of chaos, but you don't have to be chaotic in it. And I think what I'm grabbing from what you said a few moments ago is that there is a lot going on in the life of David Schwartz and his family, and, we're talking about your dad's business. What we can't separate that from why you're talking about your dad's business, which is a whole different thing, and what that means to your family. And that that feels like being in the middle of that vortex that you were talking about, kind of that swirling. And it's like the eye of a hurricane. Every once in a while, you have a little peaceful moment and you feel like you're out of it. And then, then the back end of the winds come and start whipping you around again. But you don't have to be chaotic in it. You can be in the middle of chaos, but you don't have to be chaotic in it. And I think that's where the noggin comes in, because you got to be thinking, okay, so I can choose. I know I'm in the middle of this chaos. I can choose how I respond to it emotionally, whether it makes me unhappy, or it makes me sad, or it makes me bitter, or it makes me whether it just hurts, because a lot of anger really is the mask that hurt wears. Or it can be, all right, so I know that eye is coming again in a few moments. And when it does, that's my opportunity. Not to just sit there and enjoy the fact that there's no storm for a moment, but to see that window and go, there's my shot. Now I might get sucked back down into it again, before it's all over with. But it's looking for that opportunity to be able to say, okay, so what can I actually do? Not just what I have to feel, but I don't have to be what I feel. We had Gary John Bishop on I think the last one before we took the break, and he was talking about the difference between, what you're being and what you're feeling. And they don't always have to, if you just wait till you feel like it, there's a lot you'll never do. I mean, I can imagine what it feels like for you to say, okay, so my dad was there at 6 a.m. So let's just start with what that means for me to get up in the morning and get all the way over there and be awake and paying attention, and then coming all the way back over this office where people are in and out of that door all the day. That's a lot of stuff going on. But your focus is, I think, what my takeaway is, that you can still be looking for the next step. You can still be looking for the next thing to do, and not just how you feel in that moment. So.
Yeah. Oh, well, there's a lot there to unpackage, Greg. And by the way, I'm learning just as much. You guys said you were learning a lot from what I'm learning, just as much from you guys right now, which is incredible. It's interesting with the business, with his business. I spent my whole life getting out of that business. Like I told you, I was there when I was 8 years old. I was making orders. I was doing all kinds of stuff, and I was working there, my whole childhood, really, back and forth between school and helping my dad out. So it's funny how life gets you just kind of sucked back into certain things. But
the scene from The Godfather is what came to mind.
Yeah,
every time I got to get back out, they pull me back in.
They pull you back in. That's exactly how I felt. But no, there's so much to it, and you just it's true. You have to be methodical. You got to think things through. You got to have a game plan. You got to move in sometimes baby steps in order to get yourself out of certain situations. And when I say take the leap of faith, yes, you got to take a leap of faith, but you got to be smart about it too, right? Mm-hmm. You have a family, you got to support your family. So you got to balance. It's a balancing test. You really have to balance. You have to weigh the pros and cons to every decision that you make to try to get yourself out of these types of situations. But
it's funny, David. I had an epiphany like 7 months ago, and I was just, I said to myself out loud, I was like, God, I wish I just didn't. I mean, I wish I could just make some of these things go away, and I have to think about this all the time. I wish I could just fix this. And then, like an hour later, I came up with some solutions, right? And then I went for a run, and I was like, success comes from this process of what you just said. Thinking about it, putting a plan in place. And even though they're kind of annoying, you just wish shit would run right. Like you just wish people would do what they're supposed to do. Those types of things are actually what make you better, right? Because you got to think about, what do I have to do to change this? I got to think about, maybe you double your dad's business, because you're stuck in this opportunity and you remember when you were there, like, who knows what's going to come out of this situation? And that kind of segues to my next question, because you're building a hell of a legacy. You're going to leave a name here on earth when you leave, for helping many people and advocating for many people, and your resume is amazing. And I know for me, having children, that my legacy is important, right? I want to leave my kids with things in my life that they can carry on and hopefully improve this world in some way. So, let's just say your kids are in college, right? And this is kind of a morbid thought, but you don't have much time left here on earth. And you have a legacy that you want to leave with your kids, your daughters. And it's 3 things that you want them to carry on, that you want to be known for, that you want to, if it was on a billboard, like, this is what David left on planet Earth, like, these are the 3 things, the 3 ways you should live your life by. What would those 3 things be?
Wow. Well, certainly, I hate to repeat myself, but I tell them all the time that I always want them to see the world through their own eyes. I didn't just come up with that. I believe in it. And I always tell them, and that includes me. That includes me, because I don't want them to see the world. I try not to influence them in decisions. Of course, I give my opinions, but I try not to be too overwhelming in my opinions, because I know I can be at times. So I'm cognizant of that when I'm giving them advice, because I try to give both sides of the story. I try to be fair and impartial when I'm giving them advice. So the one thing I always want them to see the world through their own eyes. I want them to choose the things that they truly want to do. My older daughter is in, she graduated from Duke, which is a great school, and she's now in private. She works for Bain Capital in private equity, and I just hope that's what she wants to do. And I think she's passionate about it. She works those 20-hour days, and I think she is passionate about it. I think she loves, the idea of these new companies. She's in a tech fund. And she tells me stories all the time. So I think she is seeing the world through her own eyes. And I want my younger daughter to do the same. Well, I think she's perfect to go to law school, my younger daughter, Brooke. But she has to make that decision, and I, they shouldn't be, they could be influenced, but they should always try to make their own decisions. So that's one. Number 2, spending, giving, if they have children, I hope they have children one day, and, giving them emotionally everything that they need, really taking the time out, being a part of their lives, and being emotionally giving the next generation, all the love and support that I think my wife and I are giving to them, and that our parents gave to us. So I think that's important. It makes children, it gives so much to children when you could be that. And the third thing is, giving to the community. Community, don't forget about giving to others, we do a lot of pro bono work here. Always giving to others, giving to the community, being involved in religion, being involved in community service, whatever form or shape that may take. So those are the three, and of course, don't always go after the money. The money is the money, and of course, money's important. I'm not downplaying it, but there are other things in life that are more important than the money. And you should always do what you love, because that's going to lead to the money. In my case, it did lead to a much higher salary and making more money. But it was only for the love of the work first. It was the love of the work. I feel that the clients know that when they meet with me. That's why we're able to get good clients, nice paying clients. And so I'm hoping my children, like when Brooke graduates from college, I hope she doesn't pick a job because it's the highest paying job. I really hope she doesn't do that. I hope she learns that lesson from me. And Jay, it's funny, Greg, you pointed out you helped me point out the first part about the passion for the job, but then Jay had mentioned something about how I picked the experience over the money. And I don't know if I articulated that completely, but I was getting to that with all my stories. That's 100% right. I picked the job that was going to give me the most experience. It was probably the lowest on the totem pole as far as lawyer salaries, but that is a great example. And I think if you have the opportunity out of college or out of law school, out of business school, or whatever school you're in, or out of high school, that you take a job that you could fall in love with and not worry about the money so much in the beginning.
That's awesome. So, as a dad of 3 daughters, I have 3 daughters, so I totally get it. One of the things you're probably already, I've told people a lot that I have my wife and my 3 daughters. I don't even know if there are any flies in our house that are male. So the one thing that you can count on with especially if there's a strong mom, is that ladies are a lot better at doing what you talked about sometimes than guys are, because they will do it. They'll follow their heart, and sometimes we want to follow our reputation. And so I'm taking what you just shared. All my girls are out of school and on their own, but that cycle will repeat for them too. So thank you for sharing that. That was pretty incredible. So I want to. So this one of the questions that just kind of popped up a few podcasts ago, and it actually kind of surprised Jay because he thought it was actually thoughtful that I had. So because it doesn't happen all that often apparently, is I find very often that if I'm in the middle of whatever it is, and feels like I'm in the middle of stuff all the time, but and I'll be pontificating around the house around, what I think should happen and all these kind of things. And my wife, who is just the epitome of wisdom, will sometimes just say, well, why don't you just take your own advice? Which tends to stop me in my tracks on a regular basis about whatever it is. And so, but it's always a great point, because she's always telling me, you were talking to somebody last week that was doing the same thing, and you said X to them. So say X to yourself. So, counselor, David Schwartz has a wealth of experience professionally, personally. There's things that you've shared with people that have no doubt changed people's outlook on their lives, their perspectives. What one piece of advice has David Schwartz been known for giving that David Schwartz could probably benefit from a time or two?
I think, okay, Wow, that's quite a question.
Welcome to the success paradigm.
Okay, I have always okay. I've advised many people in this office, and many people, you know, that I teach, that less is more.
Okay.
That less is more. So sometimes you got to know when to sit down. Sometimes you got to know when to shut up. Sometimes you got to know when to stop. Okay. And guess who needs to take that advice sometimes is David Schwartz, because David Schwartz doesn't know when to stop sometimes. David Schwartz goes on and on and on sometimes. David Schwartz, you know, can get himself into trouble occasionally by going on and on and on and on. So when I tell people less is more, I should be giving that advice to myself. And there have been many, many examples of that.
David, I got to tell you, man, I got much respect for you, because that question is very self-critical. And it's really hard for people to be self-critical that have a massive ego. And the way that you answered that is probably the best way that we've had it answered, because
oh, wow.
It's just so true. Like all of those things that you just said to me, I got chills because I can completely relate to all of what you just said. Like I tell people the same thing, you know. I don't follow my own advice. I just get caught up in the moment, and I'm just like, and afterwards I'm like, damn, should have done that. Why did I do that? Why did I say that? I should have stopped. Why did I stop? I knew I shouldn't have responded. You know, what's the right time to respond? You know, so that's really good. And I think a lot of people listening are probably thinking, yeah, I need to do that.
Position heal thyself.
just shut up and know.
Yeah, just shut up.
Would be really good. Like that's really good advice. Just don't talk. When you feel like I shouldn't say anything, don't talk. So hey, listen, as we wrap this up, I've got some quick questions I want to ask you that I think are really, really important that I like to get out of you. And the massive success that you've had, what I know about massively successful people is they have habits that are good habits that keep them on track on a day-to-day basis. It could be your dad getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning and being there before everybody else, right? So what is just one habit that David Schwartz does on a day-to-day basis? And you don't have to elaborate on it because I don't want to take much more of your time. But what's one habit every single day that you do that you think is attributed to your success?
Yeah, I think it's you got to be passionate, and I think it's my ability that I just keep moving. You know, you mentioned the 6 o'clock in the morning. I just keep moving. There's a lot of people, especially right now during this period of time that we're living through, they've become real stagnant. They're home I have not been home at all. You know, I've just been going. I understand there's a health pandemic going on, but I have not paid attention. Of course, I social distance. I wear a mask. I do all the things you're supposed to do. I wash my hands all the time, but I have not stopped moving. And I've proven that to myself that I am a person that moves all the time. And I believe that's a big part of my success.
Well, and I think, you know, what you said, I mean, a lot of people, a lot of companies, a lot of businesses are using COVID as an excuse to get stagnant, right? I mean, now everything, you call up someone, oh, it's COVID, it's COVID, it's COVID, it's COVID. But being passionate and keep moving, COVID doesn't get in the way, right? I mean, it took my family down for 3 weeks, but we are back up on the horse. The whole time we did what we could do to keep the business alive, the family alive. So, and then the other question that I have for you is, what are the 3 most recommended books that you think have impacted your life?
I love the Tipping Point. Malcolm Gladwell. That's just such an incredible book about how, you know, the little things in life could have this disproportionate effect on the other side, you know. So it could be just, instead of doing this, you're doing this. But because you did this, it had this enormous effect.
That is a great book, Lola. That's going to be the next book in the book club, by the way. Go ahead.
Great book. And then I love the book. I love John Grisham. I've read all his books, but I love The Firm. It just, and even though it's complete fiction, it just, this idea of this attorney who feels that he's going to this top-notch firm and he's got his whole life ahead of him, and little did he know what he was going to get himself into. And that's part of being an attorney. That's part of practicing law, and you never know where it's going to go, So that's the second book. And there's another book by Jonathan Mailer. It's Ladies and Gentlemen, The Bronx is Burning. And that's an incredible book. And the way he captures it, it's about New York City in the year 1977. And New York City in the year 1977 was wild. Okay, it was wild. First of all, the Bronx was literally burning to the ground. It was literally burning. At the same time, you had the New York Yankees, Reggie Jackson, Billy Martin. In fact, during the game, that's where the name of the book comes from Howard Cosell, saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, the Bronx is burning," because the apartment building in the right field of Yankee Stadium was on fire. There was smoke everywhere, and the game was on TV. That was the year where the first AIDS case came from. That was the year where disco was born. That was the year of the Son of Sam. That was the year of the famous blackout, where there was looting and burning, and they were burning New York to the ground. It was drugs and just the whole culture. And Jonathan Mailer captures it into one big goulash of all this stuff going on in New York. And it's just, it just to this day, they actually made a mini series about it, but the book is really, it's really special. It's really an incredible book. The way he captures the Son of Sam, for instance, the blackout. All right, you think, all right, it's a blackout. Jonathan Mailer spends like 20 pages talking about the guy who had the switch at like Con Edison or the energy, and he could have flipped the switch. He could have caused like a brownout in some sections, but really saved New York from this giant catastrophic blackout. And he never flipped the switch. And what happened was, because he felt there was enough power to power the city, but there wasn't. And the whole place went dark. Wow. And New York back then was just, it was like the old Wild. We're burning down buildings, looting, and talking about my dad, going full circle where we started, talk about my dad with his business in Brooklyn. He was out there with he had his gun out there. He was out there alone. No, he had one. He had another person. He had an off-duty police officer also with him that night, and he was out there the whole night, watching his business. Yeah, that's how tough my dad was. So, it's just I highly recommend that book. That's like my favorite book. I love it.
And then the last question: who has been your biggest mentor in your life, and why? Who's impacted your life the most?
Well, I've had so many mentors along the way.
There's only one first place.
Well, it has to be my father, right? So I've talked about him enough during this podcast. My dad taught me at a very early age. I told you, he took me to work when I was 8 years old. He's the one who instilled, being able to get through those obstacles. He did not instill in me, see the world through your own eyes. He always wanted me to see it through his eyes. That's for sure. But he didn't, I instilled that, but I think he's the one who basically taught me that.
Yes.
Because I in his own little way.
Absolutely.
And he's the one who inspired me to not listen to the judge in that case, when the judge basically called me a loser and how I was going to lose. There is no losing. You get through it. You be tough. You get up at 5 a.m. You get through the day. You work. You work when you're sick. You get out and you work. And that was Lenny Schwartz all the way. And he taught me that. And so he has to be even though I've had many mentors, he has to be at the top of the list.
That's awesome. I mean,
that's very cool.
I would tell you, sometimes people teach you what not to do, right? And you're, not, because my dad was the same way. When I grew up, he wanted me to see everything his way, and if it wasn't his way, it was an issue. And for me, that turned me into a father like you. I don't want my daughter to just see it my way, except for having boyfriends and stuff like that. Like that's going to be my way. But the other stuff, she can not just.
We'll let him think that, David. That's what we all thought at some point. Yeah.
So,
by the way, I know we're almost out of time, but just one comment on that, Jay. I'm very pro boyfriend. I think the girls get into so much politics amongst themselves. When your daughter has a good boyfriend, I mean, a nice kid, and like my younger daughter has a boyfriend, and I like him, and I don't mind that they spend time together, and I want him to come over, and when they're together in my house, I don't have to worry about my daughter going out with her girlfriends at night and all that stuff. So a good boyfriend calms them down a little bit. It brings down, it makes them more relaxed and happy. So
okay,
I'm all for that.
Okay, you haven't talked me into it yet, but
no, I know.
Yeah, David, you're in a Facebook group that has 3 people in it. If that's as bads go, I'm just saying, three-person Facebook group that has that.
It's actually good advice. My wife.
It's great. It's great.
My wife is always just like, because I do some videos on Instagram sometimes. We're having conversations with them about not having a boyfriend until she's 40, and like you promised.
Exactly.
So, hey, this has been a true pleasure, David. You
me too.
Very, very fun, and I can see why you're successful with your clients, with your personality, with your soul, with your energy. Anybody listening to this, we do record it on YouTube, and we get to see each other face to face, which makes it a little bit more intimate. And I really like you, David, as a human being, and your answers, and you took time to think about the answers, and I appreciate that as well. And I know you saw me writing throughout this, and it can be distracting to some of our people that are on here because it looks like I'm not paying attention, but I'm actually taking lots of notes because at the end, I do a recap of all of the ingredients of David Schwartz success. And we're actually writing a book as well from all these podcasts, and we would like to quote you in here as well as from some of you. I don't like to take information from people and not give them credit for it. So are you okay with
Of course.
your name? Okay, great. So we're gonna start with at the top that if my wife wants private school, then it's private school. So that was one of that was for me. Sorry, that was. So life is about meeting amazing people. You never know who will change your life. Be able to connect and relate with everyone. Being around diversity is key. Success is gray, as well as winning is gray. Don't ever go after the highest paying job. Find the opportunity in the crisis. Sometimes low pay equals better experience. You have to love the game you're playing to be successful. You learn way more from failure than success. Your biggest mentor was your father, and it was because he helped you understand how to overcome obstacles. Your definition of success, which I love, is freedom. Also, your definition of success is that it's ever changing. And then this is something that you said multiple times that it really impacted me as a human being. And that is, you have to see the world through your eyes. Negativity is seeing things through other eyes. And I kind of got that from what you were saying. So some of this stuff is a recap of me just kind of putting together what I've learned from you. Move out of a negative circle and move forward. Don't listen to other people tell you what you can't do. Take a leap of faith, take risks, and choose your stuck. See the world through your own eyes. Was the legacy that you want to leave with your daughter or something you spoke to multiple times? Choose what you want your life to be. Give kids and family and loved ones the love they deserve always and unconditionally. Give back to the community, and don't always go after money. less is more. Know when to stop. Don't go on and on. Advice that I need to probably write on a post-it on my computer. The most recommended books is Ladies and Gentlemen, Brooklyn is Burning.
The Bronx is burning.
Bronx, sorry. The Bronx is Burning.
Don't get the boroughs wrong. That's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
problem.
no, that's a problem. I know that. I'm very educated on New York. I've been to New York like 1,000 times. I know. Sorry about that. Apologize to all you New Yorkers. The Tipping Point and The Firm. And the habit that you do every day is you wake up passionate, and no matter what, you keep moving. And those, my friends listening, are the ingredients for David Schwartz success. And again, we appreciate you getting on here. I know you're busy. You got, your father's business, you got your business, and to take the time, an hour and a half to spend with us to help our listeners figure out what success could mean to them is we really, really appreciate you, David. I'm so glad to have met you, and hopefully we could reconnect sometime in the future.
I would love to. I really appreciate you guys too, you Jay and you Greg. Believe me, I learned just as much from you as well. And it wasn't taking time out of my schedule. I learned a lot in the last hour and a half, and I really appreciate you guys. And when you put time into something, and you get a lot back. So thank you.
Well, coming full circle, you are, sir, an accomplished litigator. You are an accomplished lobbyist. You have
Accomplished
just an accomplished dad. Your accomplishments are a mile long, but we started with what I think you are and what everybody was able to see in you today, and that's you're a good man.
Thank you.
And it's good to be in the company of a good man.
I would be remiss not to say that I was hoping that you were going to help me with the private school thing, and if my wife listens to the podcast,
yeah, right,
she can say, "See, listen."
We'll do some creative editing later.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'll give her a different version. David,
Thank you, guys.